On this Friday night, the charity, the payments, the Prime Minister, and the demands for answers. A conflict of interest or worthy of a criminal investigation? The multiple probes into Justin Trudeau's family ties to the We charity.
That has not just given members of the Trudeau family a platform, but a paycheck as well.
Signs of recovery. Unemployment drops a bit in Canada, but why are women less likely to be back at work? Situation critical in the U.S.
Every day it seems like another record.
As new cases of COVID-19 spike, deaths in some hotspots begin to rise too. From a museum to a mosque, the decision that will transform this UNESCO World Heritage Site in Turkey. And think before you flush. The smelly situation with wet wipes clogging urban sewers.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. What was an attempt to connect students with volunteer work through the We charity is blowing into a big political crisis for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. A number of probes are now underway, including an ethics investigation. And now the opposition Conservatives are asking the RCMP to look into it.
It's very clear that there is sufficient grounds for this matter to be investigated by the police. We have a nearly $1 billion sole-sourced contract awarded by the Prime Minister, and we know that there are significant financial benefits that have been received by the family of the Prime Minister, totaling more than $350,000.
That money was appearance fees paid by the charity to Trudeau's mother and brother. His wife, Sophie, was also given a small fee. Despite those close ties, Trudeau did not recuse himself from the decision to give We the contract to administer $900 million in student volunteer work. That contract has since been pulled. But as David Akin explains, the demands for answers have just begun.
Well, Donna, Parliament's Ethics Commissioner is already investigating. There are calls for the Auditor General to do the same, and not one, but two House of Commons committees will spend the summer investigating. But that's not enough for the federal Conservatives. They want the Mounties called in.
It's now essential that we have a criminal investigation into this matter.
The tipping point for the Tories, new revelations that Justin Trudeau's mother, Margaret, received $312,000 from We, and Trudeau's brother, Alexandre, received $40,000. Money paid for speaking engagements over the last several years, but all while Trudeau was Prime Minister. Even Trudeau's wife, Sophie, got a $1,200 check from We for an event in 2012 before Trudeau was PM.
It's an organization that has not just given members of the Trudeau family a platform, but a paycheck as well. So that's why we think it warrants this level of investigation.
And there are new questions for members of Trudeau's cabinet. One of Finance Minister Bill Morneau's daughters is an employee of We, and another of his daughters has spoken for free at a We event. Morneau's office said that did not factor into the government's decision, and he did not recuse himself from discussions about We, despite his family's connections. So, did anyone in cabinet raise any red flags about the deal? Did ministers know about the money We was paying Trudeau's family? They're not saying.
Any discussions that take place in cabinet, as you're fully aware of, are subject to cabinet confidentiality.
And in any event, it was the civil service who told cabinet to do the deal with We.
The directions that we take are really based on the nonpartisan advice that we get from our public servants. They made a very clear recommendation.
Global News asked the 34 other members of the cabinet if they knew about the Trudeau family's connection to We. Not one even acknowledged our questions.
If I were a cabinet minister sitting around that table, I would be very upset if this was kept hidden from me and I signed off on something without all that information, knowing that.
Now, as for the Prime Minister himself, he has had no public events since news broke of his family's connection to We, and has yet to answer any questions on the matter. Donna?
And David, where does this leave the $900 million student grant program?
Well, the government website is up and running. It is taking applications from charities and nonprofits who have vacant positions, and it's taking applications from students. Those applications will be taken up to August 21st. Right now, about 35,000 students have applied for about 23,000 vacancies. Positions like social media ambassador, food bank clerk, senior citizens assistants, and so on. None of these pay a wage, but if you complete a certain number of hours volunteering, Ottawa will send you a check at the end of the summer worth up to $5,000. Donna?
Okay, David in Ottawa, thank you. Billions of dollars in federal emergency aid has been given to individuals and businesses to help keep them afloat during this pandemic, and about 3 million people have lost their jobs. Now there's some signs of recovery. The economy is experiencing much bigger bounce back than forecast. Stats Canada data shows more than 950,000 jobs were added in June as restrictions began to ease and businesses reopened. The jobless rate does remain at 12.3%, though. That's down from the record high of 13.7% in May. Hardest hit in terms of job losses have been women. As Mike Drolet reports, they're not returning to work as quickly as men are.
It is on the surface good news, a gain of almost 1 million jobs. But economists warn these were the easy ones. And when they take a closer look at the numbers, they find they don't add up, because men are returning to work in far greater numbers.
And mathematically speaking, there just aren't enough men to fill the breach of all the jobs that women have left behind. And if women don't start getting reemployed again soon, household spending will go down, and that means GDP will go down.
Economists have taken to calling it a she-cession. Certainly, the unemployment rate for women is higher than for men, but it's the underutilization number, which combines those who are unemployed, those who want a job but didn't look for one, and those working half the regular hours, where the disparity is most obvious. Part of that comes down to traditional household roles, with women taking on the majority of homeschooling during the pandemic. Add in daycare issues, fewer summer camps, and more uncertainty around schooling in the fall, women are feeling more pressure than ever.
I think women's recovery is everyone's recovery. And I think given the roles that they play, I think in healthcare is one of the things that really stands out, but not just healthcare. Think about all the ways that we live and how important women's work is. We need to see women do well, just period.
The Canadian Federation of Independent Business released its numbers this week as well. The good part is that with 56% of businesses open, there's room for improvement. The bad is that only a third are back to full staff, and merely a quarter are seeing pre-pandemic revenues. A large part of why they're hearing from their members is that fewer women are returning to their old jobs.
We are hearing that there are some obstacles for women who still are do a lot of the childcare in the home. And so I think that getting that piece of it right is going to be critical.
The alternative is an economy operating at far less than optimal levels. Mike Drolet, Global News, Toronto.
The jobs numbers also show young people aged 15 to 24 have been hard hit. The youth unemployment rate is 27.5%. And for the first time beginning next month, Stats Canada will begin collecting information on race and visible minority status as part of its jobs report. The agency says it recognizes the social, economic, and labor market impacts of COVID-19 have not been felt equally by all Canadians. In Quebec, an outbreak of COVID-19 has made masks mandatory inside public spaces in 2 communities south of Montreal. It's believed a large house party is linked to a series of infections that forced several businesses to close. New rules for bars are also now in effect to help stop the spread, including a ban on dancing and a 1 a.m. closing time. Quebec is the province hardest hit by the virus, with more than 56,000 cases. In Edmonton, 3 more people at the Misericordia Hospital have now died because of a growing outbreak there. That brings the total deaths to 6. Another 16 patients and 16 staff have tested positive for the virus. The hospital is closed to new patients, surgery has been canceled, and day procedures have been shifted to another hospital. Newfoundland and Labrador has confirmed its first case of COVID-19 in more than a month. It is a man in his 50s who recently returned from the United States. Public health officials say he did not travel through any of the other Atlantic provinces, and he did self-isolate. We continue to look south, where outbreaks of COVID-19 in many U.S. states are growing at record speed. Hospitalizations are rising too, intensive care units are filling up, and though the number of people dying has been relatively stable, that too is starting to tick up in the hardest hit cities. Jackson Proskow reports.
Across the U.S., the scale of the pandemic is dizzying. Alabama recorded its highest one-day rise in cases and the most deaths in a single day. 10,000 COVID-19 patients are now hospitalized in Texas. The morgues are filling up too.
The COVID-19 virus in the city, quite frankly in the state, is out of control. And what we do today and over the next few weeks is critical.
15 states have outbreaks that rank among the worst in the world, worse than many countries.
Our positivity rates are up, our hospitalization rates are up, and our death rates are up.
In Florida, where 11,000 people tested positive in just the past 24 hours, ICU beds are increasingly in short supply.
Here we are.
And yet Disney World pushed ahead with reopening, with limited crowds, masks, and social distancing along for the ride.
I was a little surprised and concerned. I think it's like pouring gasoline on a fire.
At the same time, President Donald Trump traveled to the state, to a county where the case positive rate is a staggering 33%, but made only brief mention of the virus.
We're still fighting it, and we're going to do very well.
Trump is increasingly distanced from the reality of the pandemic and has reportedly not asked for a briefing from America's leading infectious disease expert, Dr. Anthony Fauci, in 2 months.
When you compare us to other countries, I don't think you can say we're doing great. I mean, we're just not.
Polls show 2/3 of Americans feel the same way, disapproving of Trump's handling of the crisis, as they face the grim reality day after day. While Trump's top coronavirus advisors now admit the worst is yet to come, with the death toll certain to rise again in the coming weeks. The president continues to tout the national death rate as a sign of success. It's lower than it was at its peak, but has started to tick back up in recent days. And the regional picture is much more grim, with many states setting daily records for fatalities. Donna.
Jackson Proskow in Washington, thanks. The U.S. is trapped in this waiting game. Now the worst of the pandemic is still expected to come. Jackson takes a deeper look at just how bad it could get on our website, globalnews.ca/globalnational. In Quebec, an Amber Alert is still in effect for 2 young girls who police believe were taken by their father. That man's partner has issued an emotional plea in French for their safe return.
Martin, on s'inquiète. On n'a pas eu de nouvelles de toi depuis l'accident.
Fighting through tears, she says she's not heard from her partner and just wants to know the girls are okay. Police say 6-year-old Romy Carpentier and 11-year-old Nora Carpentier went missing Wednesday night. They were last seen in the city of Lévis, south of Quebec City. Investigators say the girls were most likely abducted by their father, 44-year-old Martin Carpentier. Police believe the 3 may have been involved in a car crash. The car was left abandoned. Anyone with information is asked to call 911. The landmark ruling in Turkey coming up, why Turkey is turning this renowned museum back into a mosque. A Turkish court has ruled one of the most famous ancient buildings in the world should be converted back into a mosque. And shortly after that, Turkey's president signed a decree declaring the Hagia Sophia open to Muslim worship. The Hagia Sophia is a treasured site for both Muslims and Christians. It's nearly 1,500 years old. It was an Orthodox Christian cathedral for its first 900 years, then became a mosque for the next 500. It became a museum in 1934 when Turkey became a secular country. Today, Turkey's most visited attraction has increased security, and there are concerns the decision to return it to a mosque may divide Christians and Muslims. In Paris, France, Notre Dame Cathedral will be rebuilt in its original Gothic style. That's according to the French President Emmanuel Macron. Last year, flames gutted the cathedral and destroyed its spire. Macron pushed for a more modern design of the rebuilt spire, but traditionalists won, and the 12th century monument will be restored to what's called its complete, coherent, and known state. It's hoped Notre Dame will open for Mass by 2024. Venice has conducted a trial run of its long-delayed anti-flood barriers. The city is testing 78 inflatable barriers meant to hold back high tides that flood Venice almost every year. Compressors are being used to pump air into the barriers, which rise and act as a kind of dike on demand. Officials hope the system will be ready for use later this year. Last November, Venice had its worst flooding in 50 years. Still ahead, TikTok trouble. Is the social media phenomenon a cybersecurity threat?
because he hasn't taken any cognitive tests because he couldn't pass one. I actually took one when I very recently when I was, the radical left was saying, "Is he all there? Is he all there?" And
that's comedian Sarah Cooper, whose lip syncs of President Trump posted on TikTok are watched by millions and put her on the path to stardom. The social media platform TikTok is wildly popular. It has about 800 million monthly active users, and the app has been downloaded over 2 billion times worldwide. But beneath the pop culture fun are big red flags about security. TikTok is Chinese-owned, and there are concerns it can sweep up user data. As Jeff Semple reports, the Trump administration fears it could be a threat to national security.
When the COVID-19 pandemic hit, this Toronto area teen found herself stuck at home and spending a lot of time on TikTok. The social media app allows users to upload and edit short video clips, and a new survey found it's used by more than half of Canadians under 25.
Once you're on, it's really hard to stop because there's so much content.
Since she started posting daily videos in March, her following has skyrocketed from a few hundred to more than 100,000.
I have followers from people all around the world. I have people from Australia and Germany and all these other places.
But some of those countries and companies are now reaching for the delete button because of where TikTok's company is headquartered.
TikTok is a Chinese-owned company, and so they're obliged to the Chinese government to provide any data that the Chinese government should happen to request.
Like a lot of apps, TikTok collects user data such as location and device information. But it was also recently revealed that the app was collecting a user's clipboard data, such as text that was copied and pasted in other apps.
Let's say you're copying and pasting things back and forth. TikTok was then able to read that information.
Earlier this month, India announced it was banning TikTok, and the U.S. is threatening to follow suit.
Would you recommend that people download that app on their phones tonight, tomorrow, anytime currently?
Only if you want your private information in the hands of the Chinese Communist Party.
In a statement to Global News, a TikTok spokesperson said, "We have no higher priority than promoting a safe and secure app experience for our users. We have never provided user data to the Chinese government, nor would we do so if asked."
A lot of this, I think, also have to do with the diplomatic and geopolitical gamemanship between the U.S. and China.
The Canadian government has no plans to ban the app, and a spokesperson for the Ministry of Public Safety says that Canadians can be confident in the work performed by our security agencies to keep us safe. And as long as the app is available, Maya Elliott says young Canadians will continue to use it. Jeff Semple, Global News, Toronto.
Up next, how fighting the pandemic is clogging up our pipes. You may have heard the phrase, save your pipes, don't flush the wipes. It's especially important as we sanitize our way through this pandemic. We're using more wipes now than ever before, and too many are ending up being flushed down the toilet. As Crystal Goomansingh explains, that's resulting in some disgusting blockages.
Every second, roughly 6,000 liters of sewage flows into the Mogden treatment plant, one of the largest sewer facilities in the United Kingdom. Every aspect of the operation on these 56-plus hectares can be broken down and recited by Dina Gillespie. There are many challenges when it comes to servicing 2 million customers, but this, what's called RAG, is one of the biggest issues, and the pandemic made it worse.
We've been tracking the use of the problem of wet wipes in the network, and before lockdown, we saw a reduction of up to 10%. But during lockdown, we saw an increase of up to 10%. So a difference overall of about 20% during lockdown.
Wet wipes are being used in huge quantities by people in London and around the world. When there was a run on toilet paper, more personal wipes were used. The antibacterial ones are also hugely popular for everything from disinfecting your groceries to sanitizing surfaces. Now, if you're thinking, but I use the ones that say biodegradable and flushable, that idea flies in the face of what's seen daily by workers here.
We've got 88 of these, so that's just one. That's just one in a day.
We call it rag, but it's a combination of wet wipes, sanitary product, cotton buds, plastics that shouldn't be flushed down a toilet. You can see it's all clogged up. There's bits of fat in it as well, and it's material that is not biodegradable. Look at this. This is a wet wipe that somebody's flushed down the toilet.
Looking through the tangled glob of waste, you can see many wet wipes. Fat binds to them, and they cause blockages at the plant and at people's homes. Since April, the UK's largest water and waste services company, Thames Water, has received about 15 extra calls about blocked sewer lines a day.
The only things that should be flushed down a toilet are pee, poo and paper. Everything else, bin it, don't block it.
As that message gets shared, the situation is improving. Still, nearly 10 tons of dried rag is shipped to the landfill from this site daily. Crystal Goomansingh, Global News, London.
Yuck. And that is Global National for this Friday. I'm Donna Friesen. We leave you tonight with two stunning parts of Atlantic Canada, just recognized as UNESCO Global Geoparks. Nova Scotia's Cliffs of Fundy were given international recognition for their unique geological significance, and rock formations and fossils on the Bonavista Peninsula and Newfoundland and Labrador are now preserved in the Discovery Global Geopark. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.